The Great Forgetting by Klein. The whole problem of dying is based on the premise that we are born and that this born something or someone dies. So the first step is to question who or what is born and who or what dies. The idea of being born is just that, an idea. It is second-hand information. It is what our mothers told us. If we ask ourselves, do I know that I am born? And we look closely, we will see that, yes, a perception is born and dies, but we cannot say, I am born. It is vital in all genuine explorations to become free from second-hand information, free from common sense. If we begin by questioning the questions, and we'll find that we are led to question the questioner, this is the beginning of self-inquiry. When we let go of second-hand information, we are face to face with bare facts, percepts, rather than concepts. When we leave aside daydreaming, hypothesis, and the taking for granted, we are left with the core of the problem, which I would say in this case, why speak of death before knowing what life is? Because if we don't know what life is, how can we even begin to talk of death? So let us first look at life. The expressions of life appear and disappear in our awareness. We know what time is, we know what space is, we know what an experience is. So how could we know these things if we did not in some way also know what timeless, spaceless, experienceless means? Can we know white without reference to black? Can we know dark without reference to light? We know impermanence because in some way we know permanence. This permanence is not an experience in time and space. It is not a condition. It does not belong to existence because existence is in time and space. It is essentially nothing. Yet in some way we refer to this nothingness very often. It is the background from which we function. It has nothing to do with succession, with past and future. It's causeless and cannot be born. When we discover this background, the problem of death becomes completely meaningless. When this timeless awareness from which we are functioning unconsciously becomes aware of itself, then we know that what we are is timeless and spaceless. We know what life is, and it does not enter our mind to even think of death, because we live knowingly in this timeless background, in the now, and succession is only an expression of this now. The real question then is, how can I come to know life so that death is meaningless? I would say that we can never know in an objective way what life is. We can only be life, be the knowing, and this knowing is an instantaneous apperception, free from space and time, in which there is not a knower and something known. It is the awakening of life in its fullness. This awakening is our real birth. The phenomenal birth is only an accident, and it remains an accident as long as our real nature, our real birth, is not explored. Once we are awake in life, we are profoundly aware that we are not a conceptual object. The object and the reflex to objectify oneself does not arise. It is a state of profound openness, a total absence of being anything, where there is simply life, isness. It is timeless, dimensionless, and cannot be objectified, that is, experienced. It is not born, and that what is not born cannot die. In this original non-state, the idea of death does not even occur. The fear of dying becomes the misleading from mistaking oneself to be the body-mind. This mistake is a thought only. So really the fear of dying comes from the capacity to think. When there is no thought, there is no space and no time. Space, time, and coming, going, past, future exist only in thought. They have no autonomous reality. All the fear created by society and religion around so-called dying is mind fabrication. But it is only an object which can be afraid. And you are not an object. Dying on the biological level does not create fear. Fear is in the mind, not the body. The fear of dying is only anticipation that I will disappear. The idea of a final disappearing destroys all security for the I image. But this you, me, this self-image is also a thought construct built up from memory. The powerful instinct for what is wrongly called self-preservation, the term shows how we have identified with the body-mind, is merely biological survival. Life is desireless, but the body-mind is an expression of life. So one could say that the desire to stay alive comes from life itself, as an expression of life. The body accomplishes the course inherent to its nature. The real meaning of death and dying is completely different from that usually understood by these words. When one knows the continuum that is life, all perceptions, of which our body is but one, are felt as appearing and disappearing in awareness or consciousness. This appearing and disappearing is the real meaning of birth and death. We are born every moment a thought or sensation appears, and we die every moment the concept or percept disappears. We die every evening before we go into sleep, and we are born every morning. So we need to become acquainted with this dying, this letting go of the objective world. We could ask ourselves in our most profound intimacy, what is there before the thought appears? What is there when the thought disappears? What is there before the body goes to sleep and before it wakes up? When we observe closely, we will find not the absence we took for granted, but a presence that cannot, however, be objectified. It is too near. It is our nearest. If we really now know how to go to sleep, we will know how to die. We will be already familiar with dying, already familiar with the dissolution of the born. To do this, one must, before going to sleep, lay aside all qualifications. We must become as naked psychologically as we are physically. This means that we put aside all opinions, thoughts, worries, ideas before we sleep. It is an offering of all that we are not. In letting go there is an expansion of mind and body, and in all expansion is the forefeeling of reality, our globality. This should be done each time we sleep until we find that before the body wakes up in the morning, our presence is already there. It is better not to postpone this letting go of the personal entity and all its qualifications until the actual moment of death. Otherwise, it is necessary to have someone who knows life to assist in the final letting go. This is supposedly the priest's role in the last rites. The function of the priest, shaman, lama, or other is to help one go knowingly through the threshold from the object world to the objectless world. It is to help the dying one forget all the residues of the person and so be open to a new dimension of life that is offering back to life of all the expressions that life gave us temporarily. Then what remains is original consciousness. But whoever is assisting someone over the threshold must be qualified to do so. This simply means that the personality must be absent. In assisting someone to die, one must die with them. The moment you die with the dying one, he or she is stimulated by your dying, by your giving up of all qualifications. Timeless presence, love, has the power to free the dying person from the residues of identification with the phenomenal world. There's no place at all in this assistance for feelings of sadness, pity, fear, nor is there room for talking. All this keeps the dying one grasping onto the objective world. Ideally, the best way to die is in silence. But when one is steeped in the rituals of a religious tradition, these may help one, in the absence of a qualified priest or real friend, to let go of specific attachments. But the rites must be impersonal. Give no hold to the person as, for example, certain sounds drawn one beyond the world of sentiment and emotivity. The way to come to this letting go is, as I said, the same as before going to sleep. Everything that appears in a moment is seen as a fact. One takes note of the fact without analysis or interference, and feels the welcoming in this unconditional taking note. When we face, in this way, everything that appears, then the openness and attention in which the perception was welcomed comes back to us. We find ourselves in the light. This is a natural giving up without intention. So whether we are dying, and we must, or assisting someone to die, it is the same procedure. We take a knowing stand in consciousness. It is crucial to come to know death while still alive. The quality of life is completely different for one who knows letting go in the waking state. This is the real meaning of the word death. It is the real significance of the word sacrifice. As Meister Eckhart said, God is when I am not. We are only born after the death of all that is personal. Only when we awake in nothingness can we speak of fullness. But there's another reason for leaving the real dying until the last moment. There's the real danger that one will remain stuck to the expressions of life and, at the moment of death, emphasize the object so that one is taken passively to what is beyond. Passively here means not knowingly. So the question may arise, what difference does it make how I die? Consciousness is not affected by birth or death. There is not one moment without consciousness. So after death of the body, consciousness is always there. But how one dies does make a difference, because after the death of the person, although consciousness is, it can be awake, conscious of itself or not. Generally, after the death of the body-mind, this being consciousness is passive. It is not conscious of itself. What is the utmost importance, therefore, is to be knowingly consciousness, and this can only come about before the body dies. Since most of us only know ourselves as objects and do not know ourselves as consciousness, few, after death, dissolve in consciousness which knows itself. Consciousness which knows itself is fulfilled and does not look for further expression. As the residues of the body disperse in the global energy, consciousness dissolves in its own light. There is nobody to go anywhere and nowhere to go. All ideas about different states and stages of the dissolution of energy are therefore meaningless to the awakened one, and a hindrance to the one who is in process of letting go of all qualifications and attachments. Such concepts cause confusion. They are mind constructs, since there is no one left to know such things. As long as there are such ideas, there is still a somebody to know. And as long as there is still a somebody to know, there has been no real dying. It is possible that in one who is still fixed on the objective world, identified with the personality, children, spouse, money, vocation, and so on, may be difficult for the energy to dissolve. It remains concentrated. That is why there are rituals of various kinds which help dissolve the energy and aid the giving up of all hold on the phenomenal plane. And it is why sometimes, though the body is not visible, there may still be residues of the personality. One should accept these and take several sessions to systematically empty oneself of all ideas, memories, and feelings for the dead person. It is a process of elimination. Then one sees that there is much more to the relationship than one could remember. Memory belongs to our minds, but the real relationship is not limited by memory. The problem of physical suffering during dying needs to be addressed because the question naturally arises as to how one can come to a real letting go in the face of acute pain. The first thing to clarify is that pain must be seen as an object like any other, from the perspective that what we are fundamentally is not an object and cannot be afraid or feel pain. So we must be absolutely clear about a profound non-involvement in the events surrounding the sensation we call pain or illness. We cannot say, I am afraid, I am in pain, I am dying, because the I is unchanged and unchanging. It is the body which feels sensation and the mind that creates fear. Only once there is clarity about what one is not, the body and its sensations, the mind and its thoughts, the suffering is dramatically reduced. Then the sensation, the illness, can be faced squarely without psychological interference. Pain, like every object, is a pointer to our real nature. It must be seen objectively in front of us as if the body belonged to another. In objectifying it, we are extricating it from it, no longer drowned in the illness, the sensation, and in the psychological space thus created. There will be a glimpse of real freedom from the burden. It is not enough to vaguely note this brief feeling of detachment. We must become truly interested in this feeling of freedom, that is, make it in turn an object of attention, sustain and live in this free feeling. With it comes the conviction that one is neither the healthy nor the unhealthy body. Illness and death are an opportunity, par excellence, to clarify the fundamental error of our existence, that we have identified our awareness, consciousness, life, with its object, and it is through this mistake that all conflict and suffering arises. Illness then is a gift to help us realize more quickly what we are not. It gives us an opportunity that should not be refused, to be what we are. Our living in wholeness stimulates our surroundings, our family and friends. I would say it stimulates the life in them, knowingly or unknowingly. They share life with us, and, at death, neither we nor they will feel isolated. This feeling of life will remain and continue to stimulate them, because life is eternal and in it all are oneness. But generally, family and friends do not have an honest relation with the dying one. They continue in some way to hold on to try to save the person. They do not let him or her meet the light. This is because relationships in the family are of object to object, person to person. So it is better not to have the family present at the moment of dying if they cannot perform the last rites. Be priests, so to speak, that is, die with you. It is important that the dying one offers up the expressions of life consciously. However, in certain circumstances, clarity may be impaired by the intensity of the pain or the use of medications to relieve it. At the very moment of the final release, nature usually takes care of itself, in charge, and pain does not cloud awareness. So when assisting a dying person, a doctor has a great responsibility. First and foremost, he or she must represent health, life, and, like the priest, prepare the patient for the final release. The doctor must also die with the patient. All his talent is needed to first help the patient distance himself from identifying with the object, and then to see precisely how much medication is necessary to make this distancing possible. The patient must retain a profound awareness of what is happening. Either prolonging life artificially or taking one's life prematurely is a deep lack of respect for all life has given us. It is a lack of gratitude, a profound ignorance. Life gives us the opportunity for real birth, and all interfering is a refusal of this opportunity. When one awakes in the real I, the destiny of all that we are not no longer has any meaning. Pain, an accident, death is on the film, but we are the light which illuminates the film. So thinking about the fate of the body and trying to interfere is a mark of egocentredness and a lack of love. Only an ego can have concepts and intentions. And as long as we live as the contracted ego, we will have a false view of what life is. What we generally call my life belongs only to the mind and thus appears to take place in succession. The illusion of life as time gives us the impression that we can interfere. This wrong seeing is sometimes corrected before dying when there is a panoramic memory of one's whole life. This is because there is sudden letting go of the mind's control, of the channeling of one's being into strict succession in time and space. In this sudden letting go, we are ejected into the timeless, and facts appear to us without all the intervening thoughts that generally qualify every fact. This panorama usually occurs at the crisis when there is a very dramatic letting go. In a natural death, one is gently dissolved in being. Real death is then the death of conceptual living. Life is presence, always in the here and now, the moment itself. In the absence of the person, there is simply living, non-volitional acting. Non-volitional living is living in happiness. It is only in non-intentional living that there is acceptance, and it is only in accepting, in welcoming, that all the elements of situations can be clearly seen. When we live in accepting, illness has no hold, no substance, and we have the greatest possibility of getting better. All the changes the body undergoes are hypothetical and transitional, but there is nothing hypothetical about what we really are. Consciousness. It is prior to body. It is prior to thought. It is between two concepts or percepts. It is silent awareness, nameless, without attribute. It is the total giving up of all qualifications, freedom from all identifications. It is the eternal presence we take for absence. When one lives knowingly in this presence, there is no death. Then when you see the moment to go has come, and you have learned how, I would even say learned the technique of giving up, it is extremely beautiful. Dying then is thanking for having had the opportunity to know life, to be the knowing, to be thinking itself. In the great forgetting of all that we are not, dying is the total release into openness, openness to the light. From the Book of Listening by Klein, Volume 3, page 67.